referring to my note, like I said, this is a run. Disciples. And if you remember when Jesus was crucified, he looked to John, mother. So what he was doing, he was in care of his mother because he was leaving here. He was entrusting the care of his mother to John. And so after Christ was crucified, when all the disciples scattered, they went out and began to preach. John and they lived there for 20 years. Paul was still in churches and remained so, and until John was, he was the overseer of the churches until he was martyred, until he was beheaded. And when that happened, Paul took over, or John took over, I'm sorry, beheaded. John took over as overseer of the churches. There with Mary and and helping. Done that for 26 year period. There was very, if any, interference. There was no legal problems. Nothing happened. He went along just 90 years old. 90 years old. Keep that in mind. He had life. And at 90, there was a knock on his door, and he opened. Standing there. He was shackled, put on a ship, and sent to Rome to stand trial before Domitian, Emperor Domitian. Very evil man. He was tried as an enemy of the state for political crimes against the state. And so he went before Domitian, Emperor Domitian, and Domitian had told him to do, and it was in, and John absolutely enraged him, Domitian. So he ordered that John be thrown into a vat of boiling oil, and he was. And just like the children of Israel, or not the children of Israel, the 3 Hebrew children, after they were thrown into the fiery furnace, smelling like smoke. Well, John was a vat of boiling, come out of that completely unharmed. This event, the people around watching was converted, enraged more. So he exited the island of Patmos. And on, if you've heard of the island of Patmos, Patmos means my killing. It was a terrible. The research, I got a little bit of differing information. 40 to 60 from Ephesus, and it was a 10-mile long island, 6 miles wide. Considered a desolate, what is the word? A sterile island. They referred to it as a sterile because it was barren, desolate. It could not maintain life. Couldn't produce enough food and water to maintain life, and people often just starved to death there. Lined with rocks and cliffs, so when people, if they tried to escape, if they dared to try to escape, they wouldn't survive because they would be washed up. It was considered the Alcatraz. It was that bad, the home of the most violent murderers, thieves, most violent criminals. Roman culture, it was very violent, very brutal violence. And ironically, they had a law that said that they could not mistreat prisoners. And so that they wanted to be mistreated on Patmos, what was, and brutal things went on there. And so that's where they sent the people that they wanted to be mistreated. Let's see. Oh, when the prisoners arrived at the island of Patmos, they were ushered off the boat. They were separated into 2 categories: common criminals and political criminals. Now, the common criminals were out there. They were in, and they were parts of the islands. And the common criminals, those were the violent ones, beaten and whipped, and it was a